All right, welcome. This is Attican. Welcome to another Let's Learn Surviving Mars video. In this one, we are going to start up our self-sufficiency guides. And this first installment, we're going to pick up with the quick start guide finish we did for Paradox Interactive with the astrogeologist. So on day 16, we had a baby and got our colony approved to go forward. So when we say quick start, we do mean quick start. And now we're going to pick it up on day 16 and look at one way, and there are so many ways you could play this game, but one way to build out and finish out your first dome so that it is ready to go. And that first dome, in this case, we're going to build up research, and then we're going to add rare metals so that we have good solid research and we have a steady income to support the rest of our growth. So here we are on day 16, and we've gotten, as I've said, off to a really good start, but we're not really doing anything with our colony right now except surviving. So we have focused on having that first baby. And in doing so, all we did was set up a little bit of food with one hydroponics and diner, grocery, and infirmary, and ran those so that we could keep everybody happy and have that baby quickly. Now we need to turn this thing into a productive dome that's helping us move forward. So what we're going to do is add some living quarters so we can get some more people out here. And we're going to, in this particular one, we're going to go ahead and start with research. So we're going to build out a research lab and go bring some scientists out here to work in that research lab and get our research going, and then we'll have really strong research. So we're going to reset our specialties and look for scientists. And with our first group, we wanted medics and botanists. We still need some botanists, but we're good on medics for the time being. So let's see what we can do to come up with a set of good scientists that we want to use. And the filters that I use, I think I still have the sexy turned on. There's a point where you'd probably want to turn that one off. In fact, yeah, this is it. I want to turn that one off because that's not so important now. We got our baby, and we don't need to. That rabbit hutch can slow down a little bit. That first dome, we don't need to overpopulate here too quickly. So we're going to turn that one off. But the nice thing about having the filter set for those 3 good traits, they'll come to the top, and we really look at this and say, okay, if we just took these 12 right here, we would get our scientists we need, we would get the botanists we need.
Sector scan.
And I believe we even pick up a genius along the way. So that's a pretty good deal. So now we've got folks coming our way, and now we've got to hustle up and get these, get their living quarters built, get that hydroponics built, and get that research lab. And I did, and I'm just showing this as true confession, I made one goof up
Resources
here.
Are low.
I forgot about the all the electronics you need to build that research lab. So it's not going to finish in time. So we're going to have a little delay getting everybody employed while our rocket runs back and grabs us some electronics. Not a major disaster, but definitely a goof on my part.
Research complete.
Probably run a cargo ship up here, made sure I had all the parts, and then brought the people on board. But no matter, it all works. So the good news is when we get that research lab up, then we can start ripping through some of these a little bit faster. And of course, the more you research, the better off you are, because that research opens up possibilities. It makes your power more powerful. It makes your extractors extract better. It makes your people more productive. It gives you options. There's beautiful things about cable that doesn't break and pipes that don't break and all kinds of beautiful breakthroughs that we want to get. So we're going to, like I said, bring our colonists on board, set up our research, and then we'll decide what we want to do next. And I showed in the intro, we want to do research, and then we want to do rare metals. And the reason being that because we are not blessed with a lot of funding, we're playing this as the Paradox Interactive with minimal funding, and we've pretty much used up all our funding. We're going to need a source of income to fund the rest of
building a new home on an alien world.
This process of making ourselves self-sufficient, because right now we aren't producing any advanced resources. We don't have polymer factories or machine parts factories or electronics going. So we need a source of income to allow us to bring materials in support of our existing colony and in support of building up our colony. So we've got some new folks here, and we'll get our 2 hydroponics farms going. That'll keep us fed. And now we're going to have to run back and get some electronics, as I said, so that our scientists will have a place to work. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because that's literally all we do is load up. And then there's the beauty. There's the beauty of that, having all that fuel ready to go. That rocket lands, and within moments it's gone again. That's the way you want it. You want to be able to, you want the option of lifting off your rocket whenever you want to. You don't necessarily have to. Sometimes you want to stick around and gather up some more rare metals if you've gotten that far along. But you definitely want that option of being able to get that guy out of there. And if there's a dust storm coming, of course, you want to get out of there, what have you. So let's fast forward a little bit. There's not a whole lot going on here.
Sector scanned. Anomaly found. Cold wave approaching.
All right, so here comes our first cold wave. They're always fun. The key, of course, is to have enough power. And I want to give a shout out to, and I'm going to butcher your name, Jean Lechauve. Jean is a French player who actually one of my subscribers, because he plays Railway Empire, and he's an extremely good, from what I can see, an extremely good surviving Mars player, much better than I am. And Jean left some comments on one of my videos about kind of the need to bulletproof your, well, the one that stuck with me is the need to bulletproof your dome.
All
so what
descendants
I'm trying to
of
do
those
here,
who dare
I know
to
from
look
the
beyond.
calculations I've done that I need
Resources are low.
the 5 and 5 solar panels and wind turbines I built originally for my refueling station, and then I'm going to need eventually 8 and 8 to handle my dome.
Vehicle
and what I
battery
want to do
low.
here is build those over there, basically away from the rest of my power grid. So if something happened to my power grid over there, a dust devil or a meteor hit the wrong place or whatever, I would have that backup power and be able to keep my dome alive even if I couldn't keep the rest of it alive, because as Jean put it, you owe a great debt to your colonists. In other words, they got to stay alive and they got to stay happy, and you can't afford to have them freeze. So I'm trying to get a little better at that. And one of the ways is to build the dome itself with its own set of power, particularly having power accumulators there right next to the dome. And then I'm going to put some switching in up here to kind of separate my dome, give me the option of separating my dome from the rest of that infrastructure, so that if there's a disaster, I can shut off things. Maybe I've got a leak up there on the above the dome, and I can shut off the water flow so that my dome itself can use the reserve water and the reserve oxygen that I have, and I don't and my colonists don't suffer while the repairs are made. That's kind of the idea, and I'm going to try to definitely work on getting better at that as I go along. So Jean, thank you for your comments. And guys, if you want to go watch somebody play in what I would call a very meticulous, detailed style, go watch Jean's channel. He has a YouTube channel. He does very high difficulty surviving Mars. It's in French, so those of you who are like me who, well, I barely speak English, but those of you who speak English, the auto-translate's horrible. You can't follow it, but you can watch and see what he's doing. So again, go watch there if you want to watch some really well played, very meticulous, detail oriented play. So back to what we're doing here. We've got our first cold wave hitting. We're cool. We got enough power. It may get tight at one point, I think, because I'm not quite there, but we are cool. Our rocket's headed back to Earth, and let's see, is going to bring us the parts that we need to finish off our research lab. I think that's where we are in this, and we're noticing we've got a little, we're draining a little bit at night, but during the day when the solar panels come back up, we're gaining more than we're losing at night. So our net is we're gaining power during the cold wave. So that means that we're in good shape there. Now, of course, what would hurt us would be if that little dust devil came way over there and started wiping out some of our power. That's the whole idea of bulletproofing your dome, so that you've got that backup in case that happens. It's impossible to have everything completely safe. You can't. I don't think you can. If somebody can do that, please show me how. But if you were to have a combination of events that wipe your power out, your power's gone. It doesn't matter how many backups you've got or switches or anything else if everything goes. But at any rate, again, that's something to work on. And we're surviving our big disaster with no problem. Here comes our rocket in. No, I misstated. The rocket was actually heading this way. I said it was going back to Earth. This is the one coming back with all our nice parts that we need to finish off the research lab and to
sector scan,
do some repairs that we need and get us kind of caught up on our parts. Then we'll get it turned around again and send him back out, and we'll be in good shape. I did bring a rover. Wanted to make sure I had one. It's been a calculated risk not to have a rover. I think it's very useful to have a rover with you because to me, he's like your utility player. And here you can see I'm turning on the extra shifts of science. Our research is now over 1,000 units per day, and that's excellent. And we're actually going to take our first 2 shifts, not the night shift, but the first 2 shifts and work them hard, which means they're going to produce even more. And that's going to give us very good research. We're like 1,066 research. And that way we're going to be able to move through these things much more quickly. And that's a good thing. And then, of course, our next thing to do will be figure out how we're going to keep our funding going, because we are, there's not a lot more money out there. There's Martian patents we can get and use those if we have to have some emergency funds, but we want to get in a state where we don't even need that. We want to have the money coming in, and of course the way to do that is to export rare material. Sorry.
It's a rough life here on Mars.
We export rare metals. There we go. So that's going to be our next step, is now that we've got our research going, we've got some food going, so we're starting to look better there. We're going to get that rare metals extractor going and have that steady income. And we're doing a couple of upgrades so that we can get that thing up to the point where when our rocket touches down, we've got 30 rare metals ready to load on it immediately. And in fact, that little station we built there for the landing station has the rare metals depot and a fuel depot right next to where the rocket lands, so that it can be quickly loaded and turned back around whenever we need it to. So that's the idea. We've got our research going, and like I said, next step is the rare metals. So let's fast forward a little bit till we get back to another more interesting piece. We've moved ahead about a day. Well, actually, we've moved ahead a day. And now I'm making my first little stab at isolating my dome from the rest of my infrastructure. So I'm going to put a pipe valve and a switch. We're going to put a switch up there just above the oxygen tank so that the infrastructure above that oxygen tank can be cut off if necessary from the balance of my build. So this is my first little stab at trying to do a better job of protecting the dome. Got a long way to go, as I've said, but that way, again, if something happens, if I get a pipe leak up there, like coming out from that water or anywhere up there to the north of the dome, I can flip that switch and shut off the line and rely upon the water and oxygen and power storage that I have. Well, in the case of the pipe leak, it would be the water and oxygen that we'll have stored. So I will build up additional storage tank, water tank, at least one more. Probably should have more than that, but at least one more, and more oxygen, and at least one more power accumulator, so I have the ability to put out enough power to keep all the buildings in the dome going. So that's kind of the idea there. And as we go forward, we'll try to make sure that that's in the plan. That's how you build the dome, is setting it up like that from the beginning, not just adding it on later as an afterthought. So now we're setting up the rare metals extractor. So this is going to give us our funding. That one rare metals extractor on that nice high deposit there is going to fund us basically through this whole stage of becoming self-sufficient, because it will generate enough income. And once we do an upgrade or two and have the right geologist in there working, we will be able to generate enough rare metals that we will always have a full load, at least 30 ready for our rocket. And now we're going to go out and get our geologists. So we want to emphasize geologists, and there aren't a lot in our pool, but we'll take what we can get. And we might as well grab some engineers in anticipation of what we're coming up next. So, but the key here really is, of course, getting the geologists. So we're going to take, I think there's 5 of them, we're just going to take them all, regardless of their characteristics. I'd rather have someone with a flaw or two, other than maybe idiots. Idiots I could pass on, but I'd rather have someone with a flaw or two working in their specialty than not having that specialty. And that specialization, I guess I should be saying. So we're building additional housing to accommodate the people that are now on their way here from Earth. And we will end up running, eventually the plan is, of course, to run 2 full shifts on that rare metals, which will be a total of 8 geologists that we'll need to be able to do that. And because we've added some more infrastructure, we're going to add a little bit more power to accommodate that. I mean, well, we've added that rare metals that needs power.
Research complete. Milestone achieved.
The power to our grid that it needs, so we can keep up. And we've got subsurface heating now all the way on top of our research, and our research is good now. We're starting to rip through this research, and that's lovely. And now when we get that subsurface heater, we will be able to run that rare metals without having to run a night shift. If we had a cold wave and we didn't have the heater, we would have to run 3 shifts on that extractor, or it would freeze on that night shift when nobody was running, when nobody was there. And you can do it, of course. You can run 3 shifts on your outside buildings, but you would prefer not to, because it's very hard on the colonists to work outside. They take a hit for working outside, then they would take an additional hit for working the night shift. Now that double whammy's tough on them. They can handle one or the other. They can handle a night shift, they can handle working outside, but handling both is tough on them. So you want to avoid that if you can, and that's why you want to have that subsurface heater. Plus, you need the subsurface heater to keep your water towers from freezing during a cold snap. So if you just happen to have a cold snap rather quickly followed by a windstorm, a dust storm, you could have a real problem, because you might not be able to refill, get your water tanks prepared and make sure they're filled and all that stuff in time. It'd probably be okay, but it's a risk you'd rather not have. So by having the subsurface heater there, covering that extractor and the water tanks, your backup, your reserve water, you can keep them up and going all the time, regardless of cold waves.
New colonists have arrived. Sector.
The first colonists are
I
all
brought a little food with me on that one to back up, because those two the two hydroponic farms are a little light on the food.
Dust
so I brought a little
approaching.
food along with me on this shipment. I want to make sure it gets unloaded as well. Or excuse me, of course the food came along with it. Food came along with it. We're doing okay on the food with our production from the hydroponics, but we've got that additional food, and I want to make sure it gets off the rocket. It doesn't do us any good if we bring it here to Mars and then turn around and take it right back to Earth with us. So we want to make sure it gets unloaded. So there I'm adding an extra water tank to give us additional backup storage. And now we're going to set up our 2 shifts, and as you can see, we have 2 shifts full of geologists. So they're going to work at peak efficiency, and as I said, we'll do an upgrade for them and make them a little bit better, and then we'll be able to fill up that rocket every time it goes back with rare metals. In fact, this is it. The extractor amplification is the one that's going to help us with that. And there's another one down here. I clicked it, but later on I probably will take it off. The magnetic extraction actually makes the extractor work even better. And it's a 50% increase, so you could really be pumping that stuff out. The thing of it is, right now there are other things we need worse, because frankly we don't have enough rockets to send rare metals back that fast anyway. We only have 1 rocket, so as long as we can maintain a pace where we can create 30 rare metal between trips for the rocket, and about the best the rocket can do, I think we said, was 2.5, 3 days or so. So if you're making 7, 8, 9 rare metals a day or in that ballpark, you can certainly keep up. And if the rocket just stays on Mars for an extra few hours, maybe that's all you would need to fill up. So
research being, complete.
It's great to have this extraction be as good as it can be, but at the same time, there's other things that we could spend our valuable funds on and our research points on that would be more useful for us. So now we've got a windstorm going, and when we're good on our water, should have really built that extra tank sooner. We've got plenty. We'll get through this just fine, but I would have been much happier had I had both of them already built. It just would have been better. So we've got redundant oxygen. We got oxygen tank. We need another one though. We really do, just to be sure. And we've got a couple water tanks now. We've got we're going to have our metal production, rare metal production, which is going to give us the income, which is going to allow us to buy the things that we need in order to build up the rest of our infrastructure. So we're in pretty good shape here. Well, we're in very good shape. It's day 36, if I can read correctly. Sorry, 26. That sounds better. It's day 26, and here we are on day 26. We've already got our research over 1,000. We've got now the potential to have a good, steady income, which will fund the rest of our stuff. We've got a dome here that is pretty much full, and it's full of useful people who are working in the correct specialties. And I'm just double checking all that to make sure that we've got the right people working the right jobs. And we do, pretty much. We're in pretty good shape here. And we've got happy people that are still making babies. In fact, that's something we may have to think about cutting back on at some point if we don't keep up with our growth. Now, as far as how big you grow your first stone, I don't know the perfect answer yet. I've got a lot of experimentation to do to think about this, but I do know this. You have to kind of go with the cards you're dealt.
Funding
so
received.
We don't have apartments yet, and we haven't been able to research apartments yet. So really, short of maybe, if we got a breakthrough that gave us all the spires, we could put an arcology in there, obviously, and expand greatly. But really, running the 3 living quarters is a perfectly fine way to do this, and it will support what they need, and then we can go from there in terms of where we want to go with this. But right now, we've got a good foundation, I would say. We're producing some food. We may have to augment it a little bit until we get better food, like a fungal farm or a farm going, or several of them going in a different dome. But our first dome here, we are on day 27, and our first dome is in very good shape. And we have solid research over 1,000 points. We have, as I said, rare metals to give us an income. And we have a stable setup here with enough power and with enough water and oxygen, etc. So we are looking pretty good. And there's always more to do in this game. And next time we'll take it up from here and see how we want to go about expanding to build our second dome. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. And I hope you'll join us for our next video. Thank you.